In the heart of the Adoga village, surrounded by beautiful hills and abundant green lands, a seemingly peaceful community harbored a hidden darkness within its ancient customs. The Adoga people believed Okanjo watched over them, especially scrutinizing the loyalty of their spouses, particularly the women. This belief birthed a toxic practice. Among their belief was that a married woman dared not spend her income or make decisions without her husband's consent. A woman was stripped of her right, forced to seek approval for even the smallest actions. Failure to adhere to this unjust tradition was believed to invite divine punishment, and the consequences were dire: the death of the disobedient wife. Even in cases of alleged adultery, the imbalance became stark. If both parties were accused, it was only the woman who underwent the ritualistic oath to prove her innocence. The man, shielded by the skewed traditions, remained untouched by the consequences of his actions. It became a tool for wicked men to accuse their wives falsely, paving the way for divorces that allowed them to marry multiple times. Odera, a mere 15-year-old, found herself trapped in a marriage that offered no solace, with the oppressive traditions of her community closing in around her like a suffocating cloak. Her father, indebted to an older man named Ohini, was obligated to settle the debt through an arranged marriage. Ohini, a man in his 40s, perceived the union not as a connection based on love but as a tool to exert control over Odera's life. Odera's life within the confines of her marriage to Ohini became a relentless struggle against the oppressive traditions that held her captive. Forced into a union she never chose, Odera faced daily challenges to her autonomy and dignity. Ohini, adhering to the customary script, accused Odera of infidelity, a familiar tactic used by him in his previous marriages. Despite her 5 years of unquestioning submission and devotion, Odera became the victim of Ohini's manipulative ploy. The entire village, conditioned by generations of adherence to this tradition, turned a blind eye to her suffering. Despite her innocence, Odera bore the brunt of her husband's false accusations. Ohini, a man accustomed to manipulating the system, skillfully painted Odera as a disobedient wife who defied his authority. He accused her of making decisions without his consent and purchasing things for herself, all in an attempt to justify his desire for divorce and the pursuit of a younger girl. Odera, however, was not a passive victim. Her resilience and determination to fight against the injustice meted out by Ohini led her to report the matter to the village king. She laid bare the dark truth about Ohini's pattern of false accusations, exposing a trail of broken marriages and shattered lives. The king, though skeptical, couldn't ignore the courageous stand Odera took against the prevalent norms. She spoke of the emotional and psychological abuse she endured, shedding light on the reality that had been concealed behind the facade of tradition. Odera, once resigned to her fate, found the strength to challenge the unjust system that held her captive. The king, perturbed by Odera's revelations, recognized the need for intervention. Gathering his council and the chief priest, the king delved into discussions about Odera's case. The gravity of her accusations against Ohini and the systemic abuse faced by women in the community stirred a sense of urgency among the royal advisors. The council, comprising wise and seasoned elders, acknowledged that a deeper understanding of the situation was required. They reached a consensus that the intervention must go beyond the confines of human judgment. The decision was made to consult the oracle, a sacred practice among the Adoga people. The oracle, believed to be a direct link to the gods, would provide insights into the injustice that had plagued the community. The king, his council, and the chief priest prepared for the ritualistic consultation. The oracle, through the chief priest, revealed a profound truth. The law on adultery was that both parties were to take an oath to prove their innocence to an accusation, but the late chief priest manipulated the law and twisted his instructions for a bribe, and over time added his own instruction, which he said was from the oracle, to keep the women who dared to speak up mute. Laws that causes the imbalance within the traditions of the Adoga people. The gods were displeased that their instructions had been twisted by wicked individuals for personal gain, leading to the suffering of innocent women like Odera, and because of this, he struck the late chief priest with lightning, resulting to his death. The oracle chastised the community for deviating from the original teachings meant to foster justice and harmony, and demanded that the village correct its course and adhere to the original teachings, warning that the wicked would not go unpunished. Emboldened by the divine mandate, the king decided to address the entire village. The entire village was summoned to participate in a dialogue that would shape the destiny of Adoga. Ohini and Odera was also summoned to appear before the king. When Ohini was summoned to be present at the king's palace with his wife, he was so happy that his plans has finally worked out, that he would finally be able to divorce his wife and marry a much younger woman, just as he had previously did this his ex-wives. With a heavy heart, Odera tagged along, knowing that she wouldn't be able to win the case. It's her word against tradition. As the appointed day arrived, the villagers converged at the palace, forming a sea of faces eager for answers. The king, flanked by his council and the chief priest, stepped forward to address the gathered multitude. The air buzzed with tension as the king spoke of the need for change. Inspired by the oracle's wisdom, he narrated the revelation they were given by the oracle. The king, standing before the gathered villagers, declared that it was time to correct their ways. He spoke of fairness and justice, emphasizing the need to treat everyone equally, whether they were boys or girls. The gods, he said, wanted them to change the rules to ensure everyone could be happy and treated fairly. The king decided that the resolution to Odera's plight would come through a sacred oath. Ohini, once confident in his ability to manipulate the system, found himself at the epicenter of a storm he had unwittingly unleashed. His past misdeeds and the oracle's revelation hung heavy over him as he stood before the crowd, alongside Odera, the woman he had falsely accused, the chief priest, adorned in ceremonial garb, prepared to conduct the sacred oath. The ritual invoked the spirits, a connection to the divine that would expose the truth and bring forth justice. The crowd, hushed and expectant, watched as the chief priest recited ancient incantations, the words echoing through the gathered multitude. Ohini's once smug expression waned, replaced by an apprehension that mirrored the collective unease within the village, knowing fully well that if he takes the oath would lead to his death. Interrupted the chief priest incantation, saying that he had a confession to make. He said that he was sorry for all the heartache he has caused the king and the entire community, but most especially to his wife Odera for the sleepless night she has to go through because of him. He told them how he planned to marry only younger women and have nothing to do with them when they get older. That is why he has divorced his previous wives in order to go for a more younger ones. He pleaded for mercy and said it was the handwork of the devil. The whole village stood in astonishment as Ohini made his confessions. The king, recognizing the need for lasting change, sought the villagers' permission for a crucial meeting with his council. In that gathering, they discussed the fate of Ohini, the manipulative man who had abused the traditions for personal gain. The council, with a commitment to justice, decided on a significant punishment for Ohini. In a moment of accountability, Ohini faced the consequences of his actions. The council concluded that he should be stripped of his inheritance, and the decision would be entrusted to Odera and his ex-wives along with their children. Ohini, symbolizing the old ways, was flogged 50 strokes of cane and subsequently banished from Adoga village. This marked a turning point for the women of Adoga, especially for Odera. Liberated from the shackles of oppressive traditions, she finally gained the freedom to walk, make decisions, and buy things for herself. The ripple effect extended to other women in the community, breaking the chains that had bound for generations. Empowered by the newfound freedom, the women of Adoga, led by the queen, decided to celebrate the day as a symbol of their liberation from the grip of tradition. It became an annual occasion to honor the gods for guiding them towards a more equitable and just society. The king, not content with mere changes in Adoga, worked tirelessly to educate neighboring communities on the importance of equality. Over time, the oppressive practices that once defined the region crumbled. The oath that once bound women became a relic of the past. Women gained the right to make decisions, control their earnings, and live free from fear. The king's efforts paved the way for a renewed era of empowerment and freedom for women in Adoga. The once silent enforcer of inequality faded away, replaced by a spirit of progress and equality. Adoga, once weighed down by unjust traditions, emerged as a beacon of positive change, proving that the courage to challenge the status quo could transform an entire community.